Okay, all right, so, and I'm just gonna also add our panel. Cheryl, are you able to share now?
I am. Can you guys see the cyberbullying?
No.
Are you able to see it now?
I don't see anything.
I don't either.
Huh.
Yeah.
I just see 4 faces and then a whole bunch of faces.
Yep.
Hi, everybody. All right.
All right, well, let me try that again. Oh, I see what I could do. Okay.
Here we go.
Right.
Okay, now, before you get started, Cheryl, I just wanted to ask if everyone who's not currently speaking, if you can mute yourself, and then we can go ahead and get started. But there will be plenty of time for questions and answers towards the end. And if you do have questions, feel free to use the raise hand option, and also you can raise your hand as well.
All right, should I go?
All right, the floor is all yours, Mr. Toussaint.
Okay, hello everyone. I am Councilman Ivory Toussaint Jr. and also the Vice President Treasurer of the Danbury Lane Homeowners Association. Thank you for attending tonight's Zoom workshop on cyber safety and cyberbullying. I know you're going to find our workshop enjoyable and informative. We have all had the opportunity to be a victim of cyber environment. Unfortunately, some have been a victim. For example, just today I got an email. Dear user, thank you for your order on March 23rd, 2021 from Coinbase. Amount of $799.99 was successfully sent to Coinbase USA for your online purchase of Bitcoin exchange. This transaction may appear on your statement and PayPal Coinbase in the next 24 hours. If in case you did not make the payment, please call us and cancel. For cancellation to or make any changes or for any issues, contact helpline at 315-523-7399. Now, you know I'm not going to respond to that. And I also got, hello, I am Honorable George Pedro. I write to inform you that you have been selected as a legal appointed beneficiary of a fund valued at $8.5 million US. Reply for more information. You know, I even received a personalized one from Mayor Kendall, which wasn't true, saying she needed money right away, telling me to photograph the back of some gift cards. You know, recently my computer started making loud noises and became inoperable, saying to call Microsoft at this number to correct the problem. The next thing you know, they have talked you into letting them sign into your computer or better yet into your bank account. So today we're going to learn how to protect yourself and your family from scams and predators. We're going to know how to stop misinformation and the emotional signs of cyberbullying, which could target our kids. So we have a lot of information to pack in over the next hour and a half. So now I'm going to turn you over to our next presenter, David Callow, to review the agenda for tonight. David?
David, if you're on mute, I can unmute you.
There you go. I'm sorry, everybody. Good evening, everybody. I just would like to go through the agenda quickly with you. My name is David M. Callis, and I've been a resident here for over, well, all my life, 54 years. At 7:05, we would like to start for 40 minutes our Safe and Secure with Keith Nabozny, who is our cybersecurity expert and professor. At 7:45, we would like to go over the psychological effects of cyberbullying by Steve Slayton from the Southwest Counseling Solutions. At 8:05, we would like to cover the types of cyberbullying, which Cheryl Constantino and the DPS health instructor will review. At 8:20, we would like to go over reporting cyber names. Public Safety Director Vincent Smith will have some for us, more on that. And then at 8:30, we will open it up to question and answer time.
Okay, I believe, Cheryl, you have the floor. And If everyone is muted, feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to the workshop. We are the Crime Reduction Law Enforcement Task Force, which is a subcommittee of the NEDC, the Neighborhood Economic Development Coalition. And we are doing what we can to help reduce crime in the neighborhood and bring the opportunity for the people of Harper Woods in and sharing, coming out to sharing what our public safety department can do and other issues that are important. And right now, we feel that cybersecurity and cyberbullying are very prevalent and important issues. So we'd like to share some information with you. And we just hope you enjoy this workshop and learn as much as possible and share what you've learned. Have a great day, and thanks for participating.
Okay, and our next speaker or presenter is going to be Steve Slayton. And just a little bit about Steve. He completed his bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in sociology from Eastern Michigan. He has his master's and he's worked in community mental health for over 20 years for adult counseling, children's services, and vocational rehabilitation for adults with intellectual disability. He's been a board member of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and for 4 years, and he has served as the board president for over a year. He's currently working as Director of Quality and Performance Improvement for Southwest Solutions in Southwest Detroit. And he has managed depression and anxiety on for people all over Michigan, and he is a mental health advocate for mental health awareness. So Steve, I'm going to make you a co-host, and that way you can share your presentation. Just one moment. I hope everybody's been able to enjoy this weather.
I cannot share my screen just yet.
Just one second. I'm just.
Were we going to have Keith go first then, Steve?
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay.
Sure, we can do that.
All right.
All right, and then I can introduce Keith then. All right, so Keith Nabozny, so sorry, I'm probably butchering your last name, has been a professor of information technology at Macomb Community College since 2011, and is the lead instructor of the cybersecurity program there. He teaches a course in network security, ethical hacking, penetration testing, principles of networking, and digital design. So thank you so much, Keith, for joining us here. And I am going to take a moment to give you the hosting permissions so that you can share your presentation. And thank you to both Steve and Keith for saying yes when I reached out to say, like, hey, can you be a part of this? And we're really blessed to have locals be able to share this information. All right, you are now host.
Okay. One second, here we go. Okay, I think that should be working. Hi, thank you for the introduction, Ernestine. My name is Keith Nabozny. Ernestine already told you everything there is to know about me. So I worked in industry for about 15 years, supporting large customers like General Motors, Weyerhaeuser and Dow Chemical, and I've been teaching at Macomb since 2011. I teach a variety of classes that Ernestine already told you about. So I'm happy to be here, and I love talking about cybersecurity, and I look forward to, answering any questions that you might have. So this presentation is part of a program called the Center for Cyber Safety and Education, part of the ISC Squared organization, of which I'm a member. One of my cybersecurity certifications comes from them. And so they like their members to go out in the community and share information about cybersecurity and try to help everyone improve their personal cybersecurity profile and be less likely to be taken advantage of. So I'm going to start by kind of talking about some, basic terminology that you've probably heard. Some of these you might be familiar with, some of them you might not be. But if there's any questions, I think Ernestine said, just raise your hand, and I'll kind of hope that I can count on like Ernestine or Cheryl to say, hey, Keith, you have a question. Because it gets kind of hard for me to like.
Yes,
split my
I'll be
focus
watching the
here.
chat, and I will let you
Okay.
know if there are any raised hands or folks who are looking like they have questions.
That's great. Thank you. So when we talk about malware, malware is just a general term that covers all sorts of different things that that could affect your computer or your smartphone or your tablet in a negative way. Malware is basically just a combination of the words malicious and software, and they jam those together to create the word malware. So if you hear about things like viruses, ransomware, or even like pop-up ads can be considered malware sometimes. Those are all different kinds of malicious software. We call it malware for short. Phishing with a PH, not with the F. Phishing is basically a way where attackers or criminals basically will try to gather information about you regarding like your social security number or your credit card information or your bank account information. And they do this through different ways. Primarily, it's going to happen through email. It could happen through like a voicemail message or even a text message. But primarily when we usually talk about phishing with a PH, that we're usually talking about somebody sending you an email message like Mr. Toussaint was mentioning earlier, where they're trying to scam you out of your information or money. Cloud is a very generic term used by networking people. You might remember a few years ago, Microsoft had a commercial for a while where there was the family and they'd be talking about like having to like save some information like videos or pictures, and they would say something like to the cloud. And the cloud is just a shorthand way of saying a bunch of big computers off on the internet somewhere that are storing a bunch of information. And that's kind of like I'll say an oversimplified version of what the cloud is. And it is just a shortcut way to say something that we really don't want to talk in detail about, but where there's a bunch of computers that are storing a bunch of information or processing a bunch of information that we all share. So if you've used Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive, or maybe even Dropbox, iCloud, if you have an iPhone, these are all different things that are stored in the cloud. Wi-Fi is something that we all use. We're all familiar with now. It's everywhere now. If you don't have it at home, it's at the coffee shop, it's at the library, it's at McDonald's. And it's basically just a wireless network, where you can connect to a network with your smartphone or your laptop or your tablet and get on the internet, basically. And generally, there's like, I'll say 2 or 3 different flavors of Wi-Fi. The 2 biggest versions would be like the private network that you have at home, where the password to get on the network, and hopefully, only your family members or close friends know the password to get on your wireless network. And then there's more what we would call like public access Wi-Fi, like McDonald's or Starbucks or the library, something like that, where there's lots of people sharing that network in order to connect to the internet to just do things like, check email, watch YouTube videos, maybe even work or work on school or even like your employment. And then we've all got apps on our smartphones now. It's just a shorthand way of saying application. And, when you see those little icons show up on your phone to launch anything, whether it's, iTunes or YouTube or a game on your phone, anything that gets downloaded to your phone like that, where you got the little, little square icon to pop up, that would be an app. So I'll pause here for a minute just to see if, does anyone have any questions about like maybe there's a term related to either cybersecurity or networking that you're not familiar with? And, if you have a question like that, I'd be happy to take that. Okay, excellent. I'm used to my students being quiet too, so I'll just keep moving on. So I'm going to go through, I've got about, about 7, 8, 9 tips about things that you can do to improve your personal security. And in general, this presentation is aimed at, senior citizens, but honestly, these tips apply for everyone. There really are very few things that are, I'll say, age specific when it comes to cybersecurity or the internet. And tip number 1 is basically keep your computer and your apps updated. This is really important. Applications that run on your computer or your smartphone, the general operating system that you use, like if you have an iPhone, it runs iOS. If you have like a phone from Samsung, then it runs like the Android operating system. If you've got a MacBook, it runs the Mac OS. Most of you probably have a laptop or a PC that runs Windows 10 or maybe a slightly older version of Windows, hopefully not too much older.
Keith, quick question in the chat.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We did have a question about VPNs, being good for home Wi-Fi.
Sure. So VPN is a virtual private network. And what a VPN does is it encrypts your traffic as it goes across the internet to wherever you're going. So, for example, if you are on a public network, like at a Starbucks or McDonald's, for example, and you wanted to take an extra layer of security to protect your traffic, whatever you're communicating with, like if you're communicating with, your bank or your email or work or something like that, then the VPN application will scramble that traffic to make it almost impossible for anyone to kind of like snoop in on that traffic, right? Like if you imagine the conversation between like your laptop or your smartphone with your bank as being like a telephone conversation. And if you were worried about somebody doing like a wiretap to listen in on the conversation between your laptop and the bank, then a VPN makes it almost impossible, virtually impossible for anyone to kind of snoop in on that conversation between your device and the bank. So, the VPN is a great application. It's a great tool. It doesn't hurt to use it at home as well. I will say that if you're using your own personal private network at home and you're using VPN on top of that, you're really kind of securing your network against anyone from, like, say, Comcast or WoW or AT&T from snooping in on your traffic. So it's another way to protect your information as you talk to other devices on the internet. So I hope that helped. But if it didn't, feel free to come back in, and I think I'll try to make time at the end to like answer more questions. So where I was with the security updates, make sure you do the updates for, like, if you get the little pop-up message, in your computer or your smartphone to update your operating system, make sure you do those within a couple days of when they pop up. Almost every time, those updates are to fix problems with the operating system running on your computer. And the majority of times, those little updates that they're fixing are security problems, where they've discovered that there's a flaw in the operating system that a criminal could exploit, and they're trying to fix it. And so the sooner you apply those patches or those updates, then the quicker you will be protected. And the same thing goes for, like, if you're using Chrome or Edge or Firefox as your browser to connect to, to your web pages, you want to make sure you keep those updated as well for the exact same reason. And of course, antivirus is always a good thing to have running in the background. The antivirus is almost like a flu shot. It's there to protect you from malware that's either known or unknown on the internet. They can't protect you against everything, but it's better than not having antivirus or anti-malware software running. And one of the questions I often get is like, what do I recommend for like antivirus software? And honestly, it doesn't really matter. If you're using like, I would say like a well-known antivirus package, whether it's Norton or McAfee, or even Windows Defender that comes from Microsoft and is basically built into the Windows operating system now, they're all very, very good. Some have slightly different features than others. And that's usually where people make a choice to use one versus another one. But honestly, in the entire time I've been using computers, I've probably used 7 or 8 different flavors of antivirus in my life, if not more, and they've all worked pretty well. In fact, the only time I can legitimately say I had a problem with a computer with a virus that was really bad was when I was building a brand new computer and I had not installed antivirus on it yet. And one of my kids used the computer before I could get it installed, and that's when I got a problem. That's when I got some malware on the computer. So other than that, I've been pretty lucky. I've been pretty lucky not to have any major infections.
Real quick question. We have a
Sure.
couple comments in the chat. And this was, I think, when I first talked to you about this topic, about iOS operating systems versus, an operating system that a PC would use. So the question is, does a person need to run an antivirus, software or program on an iPhone?
Right. So I would say typically like on an iPhone, like I personally do not have an antivirus package running on my iPhone. If I had a MacBook, for example, if I had a laptop, I absolutely would. One of the reasons is that with an iPhone, the only applications you can install on an iPhone have to come through the App Store, right? Has to come through Apple's App Store. And Apple is very stringent about the applications they allow to get posted to the App Store. They have to be created with their software, with their tools, and they're very controlling and restrictive about that. So the short answer is I would say I'm pretty comfortable not running antivirus on my phone, but on my laptop, whether I had a MacBook or a Windows PC, which is what I use, I absolutely would run antivirus on there. I know last time we chatted, Ernestine was asking me, like, do you really need to run antivirus on a MacBook, for example? I'll say, I don't want to call it a myth, but there's a belief that, you do not need to run antivirus on a MacBook, that they're more immune to malware. And I would say that's not exactly correct. They're not immune to, MacBooks are vulnerable to malware. It's just that criminals and attackers generally don't write a lot of malware for MacBooks. They're not as big a percentage of the market as Windows PCs are. So you just have a much better probability if you're going to send malware into the world, or a virus, or something you're trying to steal people's information. Your odds are better with a piece of malware written for a Windows PC than it is for a Mac PC.
And then I don't want to derail the presentation too much, but
Sure.
There's one last question about whether or not is it best to not download antivirus software from the internet?
There's not much choice. That's really kind of the only way. I mean, even if you go to the store and buy buy antivirus software, you're not really buying the software. You're like buying a code to download it. What I would say is, as long as you're downloading from a well-known legitimate site, that you're probably pretty safe. So for example, if you're downloading from McAfee and you're downloading from the legitimate McAfee website or the Norton website, that you're going to be fine. I would be very reluctant if someone sent me an email with like a link or an attachment saying, hey, here's this great antivirus software you should download from here and uninstall that other junk you're using. I would not do that. I would only go to the manufacturer website and download directly from them. Those are all great questions. So I kind of touched on this. This kind of goes along with like keeping your operating system software updated, keep your antivirus software updated. It's important, if you have antivirus software and you don't keep it updated, then it gets outdated and then it's not really much use anymore. So well, it's not fun, but a true story is several years ago, my brother contacted me and he was like, dude, my laptop is all messed up. I don't know what's going on. Can you come out here and take a look at it? And so I did. I drove out there and I got on and I was taking a look at it and I could tell it was infected with malware and viruses and stuff. And I'm like, it's like, dude, it's like, what happened here? It's like, he's like, I don't know, man. I've got antivirus installed. I don't know why it's not working. And what it turned out was that the antivirus software hadn't been updated in like a year. And consequently, all these new viruses and malware were sneaking by the software that hadn't been updated. And what had happened is that he had signed up for the automatic updates, which, there was like an annual fee for that. But the email for that went to his wife's like junk email. And so she hadn't checked it or didn't know what it was for. And so they hadn't renewed the antivirus update. And so when they stopped paying, then they stopped getting updates. And so then they got viruses. So anyway, if you're using like Microsoft Windows Defender, that's free. It comes with Windows. But pretty much other packages, whether it's from McAfee or Avast or Norton, they want you to pay either a monthly or annual fee to update that software. Passwords are really important. And they can be hard to manage. I know. As an IT person, I have literally, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, I literally have hundreds of passwords. They go for different things. Sometimes there's a website I've logged into one time and I have a password for that website. It is so important. If there's nothing else you take away from this whole presentation today, having strong, unique passwords for your email and your bank are probably like two of the most important things to do. And you do not want to reuse passwords, especially for things like, for example, if you're buying flowers and so the florist wants you to create like a user ID and a password, and you do. And if you use the same password for the florist that you use for Amazon or your bank or your credit card company, that's a horrible idea. If for any reason, the florist, gets hacked and your ID and password gets compromised and they just start randomly trying your ID or your email address and that password with hundreds of websites. And they're going to start with like banks, Amazon, other shopping websites, and see if it works. And if it does, they are going to start buying stuff with your ID and password. So, what do you need to do? For sure, a longer password is helpful. It is probably the most important factor, more so than even whether it's like really complicated, but a long password is a strong password. 12 character minimum, not 8. 8 characters is horribly weak now. My students, have computers at home that could crack an 8 character password in seconds. You probably have, kids or nephews or nieces who have gaming systems that can crack passwords like, in seconds or minutes or over a weekend even. So a strong, complicated password, a long, complex password is very strong. And if you're ever offered the opportunity to use two-factor authentication, absolutely want to do that. And I know two-factor authentication can be a little bit annoying. They're gonna you're gonna log in, you type in your password, you typed in the password right, and then it sends you a text message, then you gotta type in the 6-digit code, and then it lets you in. And yeah, it slows you down. That's good. You want that. The whole idea with the two-factor authentication is that it would be very hard for someone to not only steal your ID and password, but also have your phone at the same time. And that's the whole idea with two-factor authentication. So in particular, for important things like your bank or your email, Two-factor authentication, very, very important. So what are some examples of good passwords? They don't have to be like crazy. You know, you don't have to have like alternate letters and numbers and symbols and stuff like that. Even something like Taco Bell is delish, 58 exclamation point, or Go Sparty, 23 green, you know, $sign is a great password. You know, these are all long. They've got uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, special characters. You know, they're not hard to remember. They're not hard to type in either. And these will all work well. You want to avoid anything that's very common or that you think somebody might use, like book titles, probably not always a good thing. That might be a common thing somebody would use. A lyric to a song could be good as long as it's not like a really common lyric that's something that would show up. How are we doing, Erskine? Do we have any more questions at the moment, or should I keep going?
Yes, I was waiting for a little bit.
Okay, waiting for you to take a breath.
So we do have one question here about Norton and McAfee have a lock to show you your secure page. I'm not sure if that was a question or just a comment.
Right. I think I understand that. I think I've got a slide coming up talking about like when you go to a secure website, so I'll cover that in a couple of seconds.
Okay, and then another comment here from Veronica. It says, a friend keeps her passwords in a password bank, you know, password management site, and, you know, seems to swear by this method. What are your thoughts? Because she thinks that this is not necessarily the safest thing, or it could potentially get hacked, and then you have all of your passwords there.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's almost like Veronica, it's almost like I slipped Veronica $5 before the show and said, hey, ask this question right now. Great timing. So yeah, password vaults are awesome. I use one. I use one for work. I use one for home. The password vault that I use is actually an encrypted application that's stored locally on my hard drive, where I keep all my passwords. But I also use a different password system from a company called Nord that does VPN and password vault software. And that one I have on my phone because sometimes I'm not at my computer and I'm logging into something from my phone and I don't have the password and I need it. And so I use, you know, that to store it as well. I understand the concern. It's kind of like that, keeping all your eggs in one basket, right? You know, what if I put all my passwords in this one password site and then the password site gets hacked? Isn't that a problem? The potential is there. That is true. However, the very good password websites, and I consider NordPass to be one. There's other ones like OnePass, LastPass, or other ones that are online. They store your passwords online, but in an encrypted manner that would, even if somebody broke into the online website storage and they stole the encrypted passwords, they still would not be able to get to your unencrypted passwords. The only way those passwords can get unencrypted is with your super secret password, right? So what I will say is this, is that if you are going to use an online website to store your passwords, whether it's OnePass or LastPass or anything else like that, you need a very long, complex password for that. You know, I would say even longer than 12 characters. For me personally, the password that I use for my password vault is, I think, like 26 characters long. It's basically like a sentence that I type in, and that unlocks all my passwords. Because for sure, if somebody stole my laptop and was able to get to that file, if they knew what my password was, they would have access to everything. You know, they'd have access to my bank, you know, Amazon, everything. But there's virtually no way anyone's going to, like, you know, figure out that password. It's impossible. I mean, it's so long and complex that, you know, it just would take, you know, a million years, you know, for somebody to crack it. So great question. Make sure you protect your phone. I think a lot of us, you know, I'm normally in class, I would ask my students to raise their hands for this type of question, but I'm going to say this. Think about the people you know, and hopefully it's not any of you that are, you know, on the call today, But think about your friends or family members and how many of them have a phone where they do not have anything locking the phone, right? Like if they set it down for 10 minutes, you could walk up, pick up their phone and like just start accessing the apps on their phone, right? That's horrible. There are so many pieces of information about your life stored in your phone. Most importantly, your email is accessible through your phone, right? And what is your email good for? Well, what happens if you forget your password to Amazon or your bank or shopping, right? What does it want to do? It wants to send a password reset to your email, right? So if you're using email on your phone, then it is absolutely necessary to make sure you lock your phone down. And if you're going to use a PIN, a PIN is great. Use the longest PIN that it will let you. 4 characters is really too short for a PIN nowadays. 6 is much better. Ideally, you would use letters and numbers in your PIN, or better yet, use your thumbprint or your fingerprint, or use the facial recognition feature on your phone to unlock your phone. All those, are much better mechanisms than just not locking your phone at all. If all you use your phone is to call and you don't use it to text and you don't use it for email, if you basically just have like a dumb phone, then it probably doesn't matter. But if you do anything with texting or email, anything like that on your phone, you absolutely need to make sure you lock it down.
Quick question related to the previous slide. Steve asks, are companies like LifeLock related to, the master password sort of sites, and are they worthwhile?
The short answer is I don't know about LifeLock. I think those are usually kind of, my impression is like usually those are separate. Like LifeLock is really there more for, I'll say, preventing like your credit card information or your stuff to be from being stolen, not necessarily like your passwords, right? Now they may have like a related application or related product that they sell or offer to do that. So the short answer is I can't say for sure. I would say, if you go with a company, like LastPass or 1Pass that are pretty well known, they usually charge like a low fee. You can buy an annual fee for, I don't know off the top of my head because I use a local password application instead. But it might be a low fee of something like $4.95 a month or maybe $50 a year or something like that. It's really up to you as to whether you think that's worth it versus using like a local application that is you pay one time for, or maybe even is free, that still does almost the same thing. I already kind of talked about being careful with online shopping and banking as far as your passwords. I think the comment that our earlier question was about like looking for like the lock symbol, right? You definitely want to keep an eye open for that for websites. This is really important. Usually it's over on this side, near the HTTPS, and that HTTPS is important as well. That means that the website is encrypted, that the communication between your PC and the website that you're connecting to is encrypted and cannot be intercepted and have a criminal, read that information going back and forth, like whatever your password is, or that you're transferring money and things like that. It makes it virtually impossible for them to do that. I would never, ever, ever put my credit card information, banking information, anything really important onto a website that was just HTTP that did not have the lock symbol. If it doesn't have the lock symbol, and if it's not HTTPS, it's fine if you want to just look up information on it or something, but I would not put credit card or banking information on it whatsoever. We talked about this. This came up earlier with Mr. Toussaint. Beware of scams over the phone or email. For sure, there was just an article in the Detroit Free Press just last month. Especially for older people, it's becoming to be a common scam to basically they create like what they call it's a romance scam, and they befriend somebody through texting or email, and then they get to send them. Get someone to send them like a nude photo, And then they threaten to like reveal that photo to their friends, family members, people at church. And it's basically like a blackmail scheme. And it happens, unfortunately, it happens a lot because it's cheap. It's easy to do. It costs, criminals almost nothing to make that happen. And even if they only make a couple $100s out of it, it was good money for them. So being aware of the scams and don't do anything you don't feel comfortable with. For sure, I would recommend don't send risque photos to anyone online. I definitely wouldn't do that. For sure, I wouldn't send that to anybody who I'd never met in person and don't have like a deep relationship with. So you just want to be very cautious. The romance scams, again, and this is another one of those things that's not specific to senior citizens. This affects both younger people and older people. And a lot of times, sometimes it's not like they're necessarily trying to, directly do a blackmail thing. It can just be like, they just keep asking for money or gifts or help. I need help to pay rent this month, or I just lost my job and I just need a little help to get out of this financial hole. Can you help me out? Send me some money. And it just keeps perpetuating. And one of the ways this kind of becomes like more obvious is like, they never seem to be able to meet, right? Like if you ever want to meet this person, like if say they lived in, New Jersey and you were going to New Jersey to visit somebody else and you say, oh, hey, I'm going to be in New Jersey. We can finally meet in person. They'll be like, oh yeah, I wish I could. I'll be out of town. I'm so sorry. Just can't do it. Maybe next time, there will always be an excuse. So just something to be aware of. Computer cold calling. One of the people I work with had this exact scam happen to her. Someone called her up claiming to be from Microsoft and said that they were there to help fix her computer. And she knew exactly what the scam was and talked to them on the phone, tried to shame them into like, not doing it anymore. I don't think she was successful, but I gave her complete props for trying. And it gives me a great story to tell to my classes. But, again, Microsoft is never going to call you to help you with your computer. They're not. You have to call somebody, like, Best Buy or someone else to help fix your computer. Microsoft is not going to call you. Ransomware, this usually happens when you download software, malware, that basically locks your computer down. And then for you to get your computer unlocked, you have to send them money. You have to go buy like a gift card or like a cash card or a Western Union something, like where you can send them money to get the code to unlock your computer. And again, this is common as well. This unfortunately has become a big scam for large places as well. Small cities, medium-sized cities, hospitals, many civic type organizations have fallen prey to this, and it is horrible. It is expensive to recover from, and unless they have basically like ransomware insurance to help recover from it, it is very difficult to get out of restore services when this happens. And yeah, I think Mr. Toussaint mentioned this one as well. It was great. He seems to be like a target for a lot of scams. And yeah, it's like, if you send me this money, I will send you this much money. And it's like, that's always going to be a scam. Stranded traveler, niece, nephew, grandchild says, hey, I'm stuck. Sends you a text message. I'm in jail, or I got pulled over by the police. I need money. Don't tell mom or dad, can you just send me money right now? Call mom or dad. Yeah, don't believe that. Important things you can do, and I think our public safety director is going to talk about this as well later, is like, if you're the victim of a scam, don't be ashamed. Talk to someone, call the police, let them know. There's things they might not be able to help you with that immediate problem, but they might be able to stop it from getting worse. They could at least give you advice about what to do next. Take a police report, so if it happens to somebody else and they happen to catch them, that they have information about it. Things you can do, for sure, change your passwords. In particular, if it's related to something like your bank or shopping or something like that, change that right away. Email, talk to someone about getting a copy of your credit report, check it, check your credit cards for weird transactions and your bank especially. I will say, kind of on the same note, as far as shopping online, it is almost always better when you're shopping online to use a credit card. Try not to use your debit card, the one that's tied directly to your checking account or savings account, if at all possible. If you use a credit card, the bank's money is at play, right? They're out of money temporarily. Not you. They haven't taken, like, if you have $1,000 in the bank and they spend like $950 of it, you're out $950 and you might never see that again. If they make a fraudulent charge on a credit card, right now the bank is out $950. And if you dispute it right away, there's a much better chance that you will not have to pay it. So whenever possible, if you're shopping online, try to use a credit card, not a debit card, and not your bank information if at all possible. Watch out for email messages or pop-ups that are sketchy. Never follow instructions from somebody you don't know, or if they send you an email saying, click on this, always be sketchy about that, or always be concerned about it. I talked about phishing earlier. Here's an example of like what a phishing email can look like. I will say typically, you can almost always identify a phishing email based on things like, poor spelling, like, the word February is spelled wrong. Punctuation doesn't always make sense. You've got to look out for weird things like that. Like this, thank you, your bank. Yeah, my bank doesn't say things like that. It might say sincerely and give a name, but it wouldn't say, thank you, your bank. Look for things like this. Use the cursor for your mouse. Hover over any hyperlinks before you click on them. Like this one says, it looks like it's your bank, but when you hover over it, it is not your bank. It is something totally different. So watching out for those, also very important. This is a copy of an email that my wife received. It was interesting. It was clearly a scam right away, even though it says it comes from Netflix. But this is not what Netflix logo looks like. And it's talking about some change. Sorry for apologize. Okay, so we've got some grammar errors here. It says dear blank. Okay, that's a problem. It seems that someone is not two words, changed, not changed your billing information, and so on and so on. The one way for sure that we absolutely knew that this was not a legitimate email from Netflix is that my wife does not pay the bill for Netflix. I do. So we knew right away that it was a scam. But so things like that. I've gotten a couple text messages. This one just came in like just a few days ago. Congratulations, Keith, you came in third. Oh, really? For a fitness watch raffle? I don't think so. Urgent notice from USPS. Yeah, I think if that were true, they would have sent me an email. They know my email. My last big tip is to back up your data. If you're using an iPhone, make sure you use like iCloud to back up your contact information. You can also use your Google Drive to back up photos and things like that. All very helpful. So that if anything happens, like if your PC or your phone crashes, breaks, drops down, in the lake or the river when you're out canoeing, that you have a way to restore that information. So also very helpful. You don't want to lose those photos of kids and cats, forever. So make sure it gets backed up. Finally, as I end near the end of my presentation, I'll say, making some change to security is better than no change to security. Make little changes. Even if all you do is just change your Amazon password and your bank password to something stronger and more complex, good for you. That's a great start. You don't have to change everything all at once. Just make some little changes here and there, a little at a time. All that stuff makes it harder for a criminal to get your information. Just a little summary, a little recap. And I know I ran a little over there Ernestine.
It's all right. It's all right. I was holding questions until the end just so we could stay
Yeah,
on
I was
track.
trying to get through, so fire away.
Okay, so I do have a question in here that asks a little bit about is Apple Pay secure, or is it better to use your credit card as needed?
I use Apple Pay. I think that's fine. It's usually, I mean, it depends on how you set it up, whether it's tied to a credit card or your bank account. Again, kind of going back to my earlier comment, I have Apple Pay tied to a credit card so that even if there is a problem with Apple Pay, again, the bank's money is at risk, not my money, at least right away. And I don't use Apple Pay for a lot, mostly because I'm going to show my age here. I still always think about using my credit card first instead of my phone to pay for things, right? The exception is like when I go through Starbucks drive-through, I remember to use my phone for that, so I get those Starbucks points. But for other things, I generally pay with my credit card. But yeah, I would say if you tie it to something like a credit card, I think it's fine. It's secure. Yes.
And then the next question is, with McAfee, they used a vault. Being a virus protector, I thought I would use that. It asks for different passwords. So let's see, is McAfee good for protecting all passwords?
I don't have personal experience with McAfee's password vault. My expectation would be probably that it's fine. Again, I think if you use like a strong password with the McAfee password vault to protect your passwords, that you're probably going to be fine. But I don't have personal experience with it, so I can't tell you 100% definitively. But McAfee is a well-known company, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head that raises a red flag that like, oh, I heard a bad story about it. So I think that's probably okay. And try it with like a couple passwords. Maybe I'll say like low stakes passwords first. See how you like it before you commit putting everything into it.
Okay, and last question. I back up to a separate drive. Could that also get infected with a virus? That's actually the same question I would have.
Sure. So it is absolutely possible. Now, it cannot get infected when it is not connected to your computer, right? When that external hard drive is disconnected from your computer, it's pretty much safe from everything except like a fire or a flood. But when it is connected to your computer, it is completely vulnerable to any kind of malware or viruses that might infect your laptop or PC. So I would say, it is definitely part of the whole consideration to make sure that like you've got like updated antivirus to protect your system. And in general, if you're careful about the websites you go to and about the software you download, and you're not always clicking random links, you're probably going to be pretty safe under the majority of circumstances. I think for many of us, probably one of our biggest vulnerabilities is probably our kids, because they tend to like download stuff that their friends recommended, or they're trying to download sketchy software or music or videos. They're probably one of our biggest vulnerabilities, not intentionally, but I would say, so I would say the short answer is yes, it is vulnerable. But if you're careful with how you use your laptop or PC in general, then your external drive should be pretty safe as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much for this presentation. And Keith, if you're willing to stick around, anybody else who has any questions can, ask Keith those questions later on. But we're going to move right along. And
Okay.
Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong. The next person in our lineup is going to be Steve Slayton.
Correct.
Okay, Steve, you are now the host. You can share your screen. All right, is everybody having a good time and learned lots of information? Okay.
Excellent. I consider myself somewhat in the know when it comes to that stuff, but I learned a lot.
Yeah, me too. And you see, I have been a target. I can go on.
Oh man, can you see my screen?
No.
I can see you.
Oh, well, okay.
Now we're in the steam.
Hopefully, what the heck's going on?
Okay, let me know if I need to make you host instead of co-host, and then.
No, it's
might help.
working. Oh, wait, maybe this. Okay. Okay, let me know if I need to make you host instead of co-host, and then that might help.
Okay, let me know if I need to make you host instead of co-host, and then.
Oh, wait, maybe this. Okay.
Okay, let me know if I need to make you host instead of co-host, and then.
Yes.
Okay, now we can see it.
Okay, all right. So again, thank you so much for having me. I think it's wonderful that you guys are taking on the initiative of learning about this stuff and cyberbullying, and as far as kind of my reason why I'm here. So in the introduction, I did, I am working at Southwest Counseling Solutions, which is a community mental health provider in Detroit. But probably the main reason I'm here is that I'm a board member with NAMI Michigan, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and they are the largest grassroots mental health advocacy group in the country. Each state has their own state chapter and then local affiliates to do programming. So getting to work with the state office has been really probably my favorite professional thing. And when it comes to bullying, that is just, you cannot separate bullying from mental health one way or the other. So again, please feel free to have stop me at any points if you have questions.
And if anybody has questions, just feel free, like last time, drop them in the chat and I'll make sure that I'll read them out for Steve.
So the biggest piece about bullying is that it comes from an imbalance in power, whether it's someone wanting to get more power or take away other people's power. That's kind of the root of it. And so there's a lot of complex pieces of the mental health of both the person doing the bullying and the victim. So one of the reasons that people do bully is to gain power, either when they are trying to either build up their social status or gain control of law, or try to address feelings of loss of control due to trauma that they've incurred growing up. You know, nobody's born a bully. It happens from experience and their own issues as well. And that's one of the things I'm going to go over a little bit too, is that, you know, bullies, and this is not going to get into victim blaming by any means, but bullies bully because they have a lot of issues going on as well. So really the best way to solve bullying is to work with both the bully and the victim. But so one of the things that's common is that there's a lack of social skills there, whether it's either undeveloped or they're just poor from what they've learned of, either what they've modeled from what they've seen, or just the way they've been brought up. If they don't have that strong social role model or social upbringing, it can manifest in trying to lash out or reach out in ways that are not a socially acceptable or beneficial way. And they start leading into all of these mental health issues of anxiety, paranoia, depression, which I'll get more into in a little bit. So you see here that those who chronically bully tend to have strained relationships with their parents and peers, which is again kind of that insecurity that they are trying to address by taking it out on someone else. There are overt and less overt examples. So the overt ones are name calling, teasing, physical intimidation, fighting, rumors, and that. And then some of the less obvious ones are going to fit more into the cyberbullying piece here. And they can be much less subtle, excluding people from group text or excluding people from a group chat on social media. Subliminal social media posts are a much more indirect way of bullying people, where it could seem harmless to the majority of people reading it, but whoever it's about will know it's about them. And it's one of those things where you can't say this person's bullying me because the words themselves aren't necessarily aggressive or mean, but they hurt. And then there's also little things like liking people's posts on social media and stuff, or not liking them. You know, if there's that pressure of that like button to, you know, if you're and your friend are not getting along, and all of a sudden they used to like all of your posts and now they haven't liked them in a while, that kind of builds on that feeling of that target or I guess it's a bully piece as well. But yeah, so those things aren't really things you would notice unless it's happening to you. Okay, so this is a little bit more of what I was talking about. The bullying not only harms its victims, but the bullies themselves. So this is for people who have known bullies growing up, probably, I think more often than not, they don't always take the best trajectory in life. That the bullying behavior doesn't lend itself to a strong professional social career. But again, it's not always their fault necessarily, as it is dealing with and not getting the support needed to address some of the things that they've gone through. So you can see that their aggressive behavior just kind of halts some of their development. You're not learning well, you're not having those relationships that people need to kind of help them feel secure and develop. And so this next piece is the main thing. The people are social creatures. We need social connection. That's just ingrained in who we are. Nobody can succeed alone. If you think of the most extreme punishment in a country, it's in jail when you put someone in the hole and they don't see or talk to anyone for however long. Like, that's the worst thing that can happen to people. And so needing that interaction, it's so much easier said than done to say, oh, don't pay attention to what they're saying, or they don't know what they're saying. People are hardwired to want some feedback of why people's opinions do matter. And then that's also because people have this inherent drive towards self-discovery, where they use external factors to kind of help complete their picture of themselves. So they have all of their internal thoughts and beliefs and experiences, but you don't really feel as if you have the entire picture of yourself without the feedback from others as well. So again, it's just that piece to be socially connected, and that's why people's opinions do impact people, whether you want them to or not. I'm gonna go backwards. Don't peek.
Let's see. Did you?
I'm good. I have the okay. So cyberbullying is, with that, okay. Cyberbullying is kind of what you would imagine, bullying that takes place in an electronic context, text messages, social media, blogs, phone calls, just bullying moved to a different platform. And with smartphones being the primary method of communication for youth, there's access to be bullied on them, virtually 24 hours a day. Get that plus the opportunity for people to engage in bullying or intimidation and name calling anonymously through the internet just adds a secondary I guess avenue for people to engage in the behavior without having to see people's expressions. When you hurt their feelings face to face, you don't have, even bullies have a lot of times have that sense of, if they see that they hurt someone, there still might be some empathy there. But if you can't see someone, you can't see their reactions, it does encourage bullying behavior without that immediate consequence of realizing that it really did hurt someone. Also, some problems that are a little more specific to cyberbullying is when something's on the internet, it can be there forever. So, if someone takes a picture of you that you don't want, or kind of like what Keith was saying with the cyber piece of blackmailing, with the nude photograph piece, that could be like this too. People have a picture of you you don't want out. They can blackmail you with it, or they can put it on the internet and you can't get it down depending on where it goes. The much larger audience. So, if you're bullying someone in the schoolyard and you have your group of like 10 people who are around to see it, that's awful. But when you're on the internet, there might be hundreds or thousands of people witnessing it, which just kind of, pushes those feelings of, wow, everyone's against me type of a thing, and makes that more prevalent. And then the possibility of the pictures, screenshots, conversations, comments going viral, where they just kind of spread, and you lose control of where they go or who's seeing them. It just takes on a life of its own. So these are some of the signs that someone may be a victim of cyberbullying. They appear upset when they get offline, whether it's they put their computer down or they put their phone down, and they just seem upset right after. I think that's a pretty clear one that something may have happened online. They appear upset after receiving a text message. Again, this could be either because they received a bad text message or because someone sent them a text message about something they saw online. So again, it's just that sign of an immediate connection from being done with the internet or the interaction to being immediately upset. Withdrawing, so you're going to start seeing some of the overlap between being a victim of bully and symptoms of depression and anxiety. This being a big one is withdrawing from social interaction with peers. So this can be because of the bullying piece. They don't feel that they're actually friends anymore, or that they feel betrayed, or that they just don't talk anymore. But it also could be if they are going through depression, that they've just kind of lost that spark or that motivation to engage with others as they start to internalize things and, kind of begin that isolation that comes with being depressed. Drop in academic performance. Again, this could be a multiple number of factors, but being bullied is one of them. Depression could be another one. Anxiety could be another one. Suicidal thoughts could be another one. Drug use could be another one. And abrupt changes in friendship. So, if they have a group of friends or a best friend, and, for like a week or two, they don't hang out for anymore. Any noticeable change in their circles could be a sign as well. And so that's connected to depression. So these are some of the signs that someone might be dealing with depression. Some of these are, I hope, some of them are crossover. So change in the sleep, appetite, concentration, energy, usual activities, self-esteem, feeling hopeless. And then depression can manifest itself in physical ways too. If they are complaining of feeling sore or headaches or stomach pains, and they go to the doctor and the doctor can't find anything wrong, it's possible that the mental health struggle is manifesting itself in physical pain. And if it escalates past that, these are some of the signs that someone may be dealing with the suicidal ideation. And some of them are a little bit similar, but they'd be more extreme. So changes in eating and sleeping habits, that could change quite a bit. Withdrawing completely or drastically from anything that they used to enjoy, friends, family, activities that they used to do. The more someone kind of pushes everyone else away and just internalizes everything, that's always a warning sign. If extreme changes in behavior, if they start acting more violent when that has never been part of their behavior, being more rebellious than usual, running away, again, those are signs that someone may be kind of getting towards that really scary point. New or increased drug and alcohol use, neglecting physical appearance. If they quit showering, quit brushing their teeth, don't change their clothes, those can be signs as well. A drastic noticeable personality change kind of is a warning sign. So this one's a little more obvious, but just statements of wishing they were dead, people would be better off without them, wishing they could fall asleep and not wake up. Sometimes people may express that in somewhat of a in passing, but just to kind of see what the reaction is, and then if it doesn't get noticed, it can lead to a much worse result. And then giving away valued possessions is kind of a common one too. If someone loves their pet and they all of a sudden want to find a backup plan for if they're gone, I want someone to have my pet. That's always a big red flag too. So this is a little bit about how why the bullying matters and how it's so much more than just, words. So bullying not only creates just like the immediate harm, but very long-term impacts as well around the low self-esteem piece is where it really hits you, which it takes a long time to get back sometimes. Social media and the cyber environment creates this this pressure to kind of view yourself as perfect because you're kind of comparing your real life to everyone else's highlight reels, and there's that need to present yourself as the celebrity influencers or whatever, or especially in this part is a little more difficult on females than it is on males because of the pressure on appearances in that nature. So just feeling as if everyone else has their lives together except for you because you only see what others want you to see really brings home that feeling of anxiety. So a little bit on the scope, more than 20% of high school students report being bullied in a given year. And then bullying is linked to depression, low self-esteem, helplessness, anxiety, reduced concentration, alienation, and suicidal ideation. This is just a table that shows how the social anxiety is linked to cyberbullying. And yeah, so it can be pretty significant. Those scores in the 30s and 40s are very high. Okay, so that first one's a little redundant, but so does that girls are twice as likely to be victims of cyberbullying. And again, this goes to kind of the pressures that are put on females in a lot of situations. And then this next part is not really part of it, but I found this when I was doing it, and I just thought it was really interesting. So it's nomophobia is a fear or intense discomfort around the possibility of not having a mobile phone on you or being offline. And it's not officially in the DSM-5, which is the official book for mental health diagnoses, but they're advocating it to be included in there. So it's actually a very serious, real addiction to being a cyber addiction where you have to be on it, or it really does bring extreme anxiety with it. If anyone has seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix, well, I can't see everyone's screen, but so I referenced that in a couple of them. But one of the things that they said is that the social media starts to dig deeper and deeper down into the brainstem and take over kids' sense of self-worth and identity. And it really does. Like no matter like how well you think your kid, or I guess anyone is developed, that social media world is, if you don't have a lot of connections and that's your main place for connections, it does turn into kind of your sense of self and how you feel about yourself. So it is just not youth that are cyberbullied. This graph here goes around or talks about the cyberbullying in adults. And it shows this, there hasn't been a lot of research on this yet that I've found. That this part's a newer study, but you can see that the ages, there's still a prevalence of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and older that do experience this. So while the youth bullying gets the majority of the attention, it's very real for anyone, and a lot of these same symptoms or would be appropriate for anyone experiencing these bullying attacks and being a victim of it. All right, so I took this one from Social Dilemma as well. So everyone in your news feed sounds just like you. Social media is creating an echo chamber of people who sound exactly like you. This is to manipulate you into staying on the platform and make you believe you're not alone in the way you think. You're not alone. This doesn't mean everyone thinks the same way as you. Don't let social media make you believe everyone thinks like you. They don't. And this was from one of the early investors of Facebook. And so this speaks to the algorithm that social media uses to prioritize what posts you're going to see. And they do that. They do post or show you things that fit into what you've already posted, what you've looked up, what you comment on, because they want to create that sense that you belong there and you are enjoying what you're seeing, and it's not, you're not going on there and seeing a lot of stuff you don't believe in, or et cetera. And kind of what it does is create, there's a phenomenon called a confirmation bias, where you are much more likely to accept or take in thoughts and ideas that are already existent to what you believe in. And that's kind of like a subconscious piece of the fact that your brain has is just inundated with I think it's like 400 quintilobytes of information each day, and it's subconsciously it's easier for it to accept information and process it that already fits what you think than it is to actively process new ideas. So that's kind of, I think, part of the rift in why social media can be so divisive. And if you believe one thing and someone else believes the other, and you just keep seeing information that proves your point, people just keep getting pushed more and more in opposite directions. So this is also from Social Dilemma. It's really interesting, kind of scary dilemma, or documentary too, if you ever watch it. But the spike in self-harm instances for girls, and this coincides almost directly with the rise in social media. So it's just way too much of a coincidence that the girls are hurting themselves at such an extremely higher rate as social media has grown. Okay, this is kind of the steps of what you can do. So bullying should never, ever be ignored. That's probably the biggest piece, is just it should not be ignored. It should not go unchecked from both the bully or the victim. And the biggest thing is to just ask, you ask your kids, ask your friends. If you notice any of the signs we talked about, just say, hey, is anyone bullying you? Do you know anyone that's being bullied? Have you seen anyone be bullied? And just really have that conversation. It's kind of the same with any mental health concerns. Ask, are you feeling depressed? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling sad for more than 7 days? And just talk to people. If someone has been bullied, a lot of times youth are very embarrassed by it, and they feel that it's their fault and that it's a reflection of something they did. So the most important thing is just give very unconditional support and let them know it is not their fault. They didn't do anything wrong, and just kind of make sure they don't feel judged, and that they know you're there to help them. Again, ask if they know anyone else who's being bullied. Sometimes that could lead into their comfort level with just discussing it, or it could just help you help someone else. So one of the things, if they're a victim of cyberbullying, whether it's screenshots or social media posts, save the evidence. Take a screenshot yourself, take a picture of it, and you can use this to either, if you end up going to a teacher or the police or anything, you're going to want to have a picture of some of the behavior that's kind of contributing to the bullying. And sometimes if it's like Facebook or Instagram, things like that, you can contact the platform and let them know that there's bullying going on, and sometimes they will help remove the content. So there are times when bullying you should contact the police. And that's when there's threats of physical harm, there's stalking behavior that becomes threatening, or the use of pornographic, I should say, images, not images. So some of those things are just, blatantly illegal. Minors should never be subjected to pornographic and inappropriate material. When stalking is a very serious indication that something could happen, and if someone just doesn't feel comfortable, then you can always contact the police, and they will help you kind of identify how to move forward, if it's something to make a report on or not. But those are 3 of the big red flags that should be addressed with the police. And so these are some of my resources. The big one, I think, is NAMI. You can access their website. It's right there, nami.org. And they have resources on identifying bullying, programs to help support victims of bullying and bullies themselves, I think, at this point, because I think it's very easy to paint them as just the bad guy. But like I said, they're that way for a reason, and people don't get to choose how they grow up. And if you don't learn coping skills and you don't learn how to communicate, it can be not your fault sometimes, I guess. And well, it's not to deflect responsibility, but I guess just to say that sometimes bullies need help as well. And that is all I have. Does anyone have other questions in the chat or anything?
No questions in the chat, but thank you so much, Steve. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to, you can ask them now or to type it in the chat if you want to remain anonymous. There's a comment here, great advice about saving evidence.
Thanks.
Okay, well, we'll move it right along. And Cheryl, you're up next.
Ernestine.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm going to continue the or talk about cyberbullying. And what people don't realize is there are lots and lots of forms of cyberbullying. And it used to be thought of as a teenager issue, but that's not the case anymore. So I'm going to just go through a little bit of this. All right, so we've learned what cyberbullying is, and it's a very serious and scary issue. You know, and it has been linked to increased suicide attempts and other self-harming things. But what people don't realize is now there is legislation here in the state of Michigan, House Bill number 5017, that regulates cyberbullying. And so cyberbullying victims have more power than ever before. So it's important to know exactly what cyberbullying is, what types of cyberbullying are out there, and the signs that someone might be cyberbullied. We learned some of that and how to stop that. So we've seen some of that. And persons who are guilty of cyberbullying can receive up to 10 years in prison or fines of up to $10,000 or both. Cyberbullying or cyber harassment or online bullying, that's a form of bullying using harassment using electronic means. So I think we've kind of learned a lot about these things already, but I'll just touch on a few of them. We know that it's increased a lot in the last 10 or so years. We know that cyberbullying can take place in any sort of digital space. It's not just Facebook, you know, it's not just Twitter, but it can take place even on a Zoom call. And you could be posting rumors, threats, sexual remarks, posting someone's personal information, pejorative labels, bullying, harassment. It could be repeated behavior or one-time behavior with an intent to do harm. But we do know that it lowers self-esteem and it causes a lot of issues. Cyberbullying can also be excluding people. So we're gonna continue on with that. So let's see, I'm trying to move this. Are you all seeing this bar of people here?
Yes.
I'm gonna just move that up. Yeah, I might have to just shrink that down for a minute. Okay, there we go. All right, so this video is going to talk about the top 10 forms of cyberbullying, and then we'll go over it real quickly afterwards. If you want to get any more specific information. Even though this video was created a few years ago in relationship to teens, these things are very much being seen in younger children as well as adults, even up to senior citizens. So people don't realize it, but but there's a lot of cyberbullying going on. And sadly, it's even going on right here in Harper Woods, especially in some of our Facebook pages and things. So take a look and see. Remember, cyberbullying's a crime.
Top 10 forms of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is a worldwide problem that's growing fast. In this video, we'll take you through the top 10 forms of cyberbullying so you have the knowledge to protect your children. 1. Exclusion. Exclusion can happen in several ways. Your child might be deliberately excluded from online activities, conversations, or social media tags. Children who don't have the latest technology, such as a mobile phone, are prone to exclusion. 2. Harassment. Harassment is sustained and intentional bullying, comprised of abusive or threatening messages sent to your child or to a group. This can severely affect a child's mental well-being. 3. Outing. Outing is the act of publicly humiliating a child or group through the online posting of private or embarrassing information without consent. Even reading your child's messages on their mobile phone out loud can be considered a form of outing. 4. Cyberstalking. Cyberstalking is a dangerous form of cyberbullying in which attackers harass victims through online communications like email or social media. It also refers to adults using the internet to contact and meet young people for abusive purposes. 5. Fraping. Fraping is when someone logs into your child's social media account and impersonates them, posting inappropriate content in their name. Remember, everything rude or otherwise posted online may never be fully gone, even if deleted. 6. Fake profiles. Fake profiles can be created by someone to hide their real identity with the intention of cyberbullying your child. The cyberbully may also use someone else's email or mobile phone to harass them. 7. Dissing. Dissing is sending or posting cruel information about your child online to damage their reputation or friendships. It also includes posting damaging photos, screenshots, or videos online. 8. Trickery. Trickery involves gaining your child's trust so that secrets can be shared publicly online. A cyberbully will befriend your child, leading them into a false sense of security before sending their private information to others. 9. Trolling. Trolling means deliberately provoking a response through the use of insults on online forums and social media sites. A troll will personally attack your child, aiming to make them angry and provoke a response. 10. Catfishing. Catfishing involves stealing online identities and recreating social networking profiles for deceptive purposes. Catfishers look at your child's profile and take information to create a fake persona. This could involve using personal information, potentially damaging your child's online reputation. Please share this video with other parents to help spread awareness and put a stop to cyberbullying.
Okay, you can see there's some scary stuff out there. So just we'll go over these quickly, and if you want more information, you can either you could take a picture of these screens, or you can I can send this to you, but this is what I use for when I teach middle school health classes. So the top 10 forms of cyberbullying. Exclusion is probably the most popular type. And again, this is happening with adults right now and kids, even 8, 9, 10-year-olds right now is exclusion. And that's just deliberately not giving other people information or not sharing conversations with them. Harassment is intentional bullying. And this is very severe as far as affecting people's mental health. And people just say mean stuff. And sometimes they do it publicly. Sometimes they send the message personally or privately. But either way, it's very degrading. The third one is outing. Anytime you share someone's personal information without their consent, you are outing, and that is a form of cyberbullying. So you cannot share anybody's information without their permission. Cyber stalking, there's two different meanings to cyber stalking. One is when an attacker harasses someone through online communications like email or social media. They could track them down and use online communication to intimidate them, harass them, humiliate or degrade them. But also another form of cyber stalking is when you see like older people or someone who just contacts someone for abusive purposes, either to, meet up with them and do suspicious things, or, just stalking someone and, tracking them or, trying to get information on them. Number 6 is fake profiles. So it's created to hide the identity of the real attacker with some sort of intentions that are not good. And sometimes people might say, hey, can I borrow your phone for a little bit? And then they might harass somebody using your name and make it look like you're harassing them. So that also falls under fake profile. Dissing is sending or posting cruel information that damages someone's reputation or friendships. So if anyone posts anything about someone that damages their reputation or friendships, they are dissing. Trickery is when you gain someone's trust and then you share their secrets. That's very bad. Trolling. A lot of people don't understand trolling. Trolling is when you insult someone or say something just to aggravate someone into making an angry response or provoking someone. So that's an attack for the purposes of provoking a response. And that happens a lot more than you think. The last one is catfishing. And that is when you steal someone's identity and recreate social networking profiles to deceive others. So that can damage someone's online reputation. So that's a big problem. Let's see, I'm trying to see if I could get it to go. Okay, so there's a lot of forms of cyberbullying, and really the only way you can avoid cyberbullying is just not to type anything mean at all or say anything mean at all. Think about what you say before you type. Think about what you're saying before you say something on a screen. Okay, so if you you have to really think twice before you post something, because it will never go away. And maybe you know someone who's being cyberbullied. So here's 5 tips for dealing with cyberbullies. Number 1, don't respond. Don't retaliate, because that's what some people are trying to get you to do. If it's a young person, get them to tell a trusted adult, or even an adult can tell another trusted adult. Save all the evidence. Never delete any communications. You can make electronic copies, a screenshot, print it out, keep records, and do not alter the electronic communications. If you alter something, then you've totally destroyed your case. So never alter electronic communications. If they are persistently harassing you, if this continues, you could have contact their internet service provider. Also, definitely save this information or a hint of any threat of any sort and contact law enforcement. Block the harasser after you've made copies of all the communications. So a lot of people just block them right away. So first make copies of all their communications before you block them. Here's a general rule that'll help keep you out of trouble. If you can't type something nice, then don't type anything at all. Cyberbullying is a crime. So we've already talked about, victims of cyberbullying. So I think I'll end my presentation there unless anybody has any questions.
Well, I have a question that could be directed to both yourself and to Steve Slayton. What is the biggest difference between a fake profile and catfishing? You know, it seemed a little nebulous there, that line between, you know, just having a phony profile and, you know, actually catfishing somebody.
Well, the fake profile is your profile. Like you just create one that's not you, but it's not really anybody else either. It's just in the likeness of somebody else. So if you were like saying, you know, somebody wanted to attract a teenager or talk to teenagers, they would create a profile of them being a teenager to attract a teenager. You know, catfishing is when they use your profile. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, so yeah, the chief is there. Cyberbullying is serious business. I mean, I see it, and I mean, we are training our middle schoolers, and now the middle schoolers actually get it now, so they're afraid to cyberbully anymore. But where we're seeing cyberbullying now are in other age groups. We're seeing it with like third graders. It's a big problem right now, and then we see it in the adult world too, because adults haven't been trained on how not to cyberbully. They don't realize that what they're doing is inappropriate. And, you know, they go online and they do all kinds of crazy stuff and type nasty stuff about people. And, you know, whether it's true or not, it's not appropriate to do that. Okay.
And the chief also says to email him at, oh, there you are, sir. Our Director of Public Safety.
Okay.
I don't think my slides or what I have to present are going to add to what Steve or Keith have, so I'm going to defer my time to anyone who has questions for Steve or Keith.
But if you would like, I can also just kind of have them up here if you know, would like people to kind of maybe screenshot the information.
Yep.
Okay, just one moment.
It doesn't hurt to repeat information too, so it sticks in.
Right. As always, you can call the non-emergency desk for any kind of report. We have a lot of people that call 911 for not important reports, so let's use the non-emergency number, but 343-2530. Like I said, we haven't had any cyberbullying reports. I checked today. We haven't had any. It's in the code book. So either, you know, people are too afraid of reporting it, or it's being reported under a different code. But obviously, I'm going to encourage everyone. You know, if you're being harassed by anybody, you know, it's another way of stalking someone. And as the councilwoman has reported, you know, these types of events are increasing. That's why there was new laws put into effect.
I have a question about that, please. What kind of criteria would you guys use to accept a cyberbullying complaint? I guess, like,
Yeah,
is there a certain level that you'd have? They have.
Let me get you one more slide here.
Okay.
You'll understand. I don't think I put it on there. Let me get the elements here for you. All right, so basically it's a pattern of harassing or intimidating behavior, 2 or more separate non-continuous acts. So if you're familiar with stalking, that's what it is, 2 or more unwanted acts or intimidating behavior. And in the cyberbullying law, let me share it. All right, everybody got the law in front of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so at the bottom there, it defines exactly what cyberbullying, I think the councilwoman had that as well. So it includes posting a message or statement in the public media forum by any other person. If both of the following apply, the message or statement is intended to place a person in fear of bodily harm or death and expresses an intent to commit violence against the person. The message or statement is posted with the intent to communicate a threat or with knowledge that it will be viewed as a threat. And like I said, it's the 2 or more separate non-continuous acts of harassing or intimidating behavior. And then it defines public media forum means the internet or any other medium designed or intended to be used to convey information or other individuals, regardless of whether a membership or password is required to view the information. I said, if you're in doubt, always call the department and we'll send an officer out there to, to provide some guidance on where to go next.
Great. How does jurisdiction work? If like let's say I have a friend or I know someone in Florida and they're the cyber bully, like how would that work, I guess?
Yeah, that's a new one. I think we'd have to refer that one out to like the FBI. It's a multi-jurisdictional thing. We'll take the report. It's usually gonna depend on where that venue is, on where they get charged at. So with this being so new, we refer it out, have our detectives contact the FBI and see where to go.
Great, thank you.
Well, with fraud reports, that's been the, we've had a lot of Detroit residents that have had accounts charged in Harper Woods, and they'll go to Detroit. Detroit will tell them that they need to come here where the event occurred, but that's not true. Harper Woods won't send you away because you don't know exactly where the crime's occurring. We're going to take that type of report if it's over the internet.
That's great. Thanks.
We do have another question here in the chat, and it was directed towards Steve. Do you have any statistics for the Detroit metro area?
Yep, I was just responding to that, so I'll just I was responding. No, I'm sorry, I don't. I couldn't find anything. I'm not sure if there's I don't know if a governing body in Detroit that would be able to break the information down in that small of a geographic area. It may be there, but I couldn't find it. Good question, though.
I suppose we could open it up for more questions if people have any.
I have a question.
David.
When it comes to social media, as you know, we have these private groups, open groups, and public groups, and I've even seen this here at home, where in a private group, one person will say something about somebody, and all of a sudden you got 100 comments following that, but no one ever actually went to that person and talked to them or asked them about it. And I know a couple people who went through this, and people really do not have any idea who they're dealing with on the other side of the screen. The anxiety and the depression is a very big issue for people on the other side. Sitting there and calling someone stupid and 20 people following it without knowing that is a form of harassment, no matter how you look at it. And the only other thing that I had was a question about kids these days. They like to hide themselves from their parents, or we do what kids do. What would be a good sign for parents to get a hint that their children are being cyberbullied?
I think that first part, I couldn't say that any better myself. I think it's definitely, that cyber world is really scary when it comes to that. You're right. It's just, it's a big cause of depression for those getting bullied, and you never know who's doing it. You're right. I think a good sign is to always ask. I mean, even if they're not necessarily showing signs, just like a check-in, like, hey, I know cyberbullying is going on. Have you seen it? Have you heard anything? And then, that would be kind of the easiest way, but, I know kids aren't likely to just kind of open up sometimes. And, like I said, sometimes they do feel that it's their fault, so they feel embarrassed about it. So I think changes in behavior are usually the big one. If things start changing for no reason, whether it's grades or friendships or interests, eating, sleeping, hygiene. Those are kind of like the big personal indicators or personality indicators that show if something is really bugging them that they're not sure how to handle. So yeah, just, you know, knowing your kids and just seeing if there's a change, and that could be a number of things, but it's a really good place to start.
One more question here in the chat. This comes from Mary Beth. You know, several people she knows have tried to report Facebook harassment to the authorities and were advised to leave the group and block the person. This just started more harassment. Any suggestions? And I think this might be aimed more at Director Smith.
Yeah, like I said, I can provide you the cyberbullying law, but if it meets the elements to that, you know, the officers can make a report if we can identify that person as well. So, I mean, I think the cyberbullying law was put into effect late 18, early 19. So, and like I said, a lot of people aren't reporting cyberbullying. So the officers might have misinformed you at that time. But any future, you know, if there's threats put out there, obviously, and you're put in fear, then yes, you should make a police report, and we'll go to detectives and see what we can do from there.
Oh, I'd like to add on kind of what I said before. I think also, so it's important to find out too, if perhaps your child or loved one is engaging in bullying themselves. And I know no parent wants to ever think that their kid could be a bully. But, you know, if you see signs or you hear something, not just dismissing that, because it could just be something that they need support around to nip it in the bud before it is something that becomes, you know, a long-standing personality trait, or before it gets them into more trouble. You know, like I talked about earlier, it's people don't bully for no reason. Something happens that they're having trouble adjusting to, and it can be, there's help out there so that they can, you know, you can help your kid be better and feel better if that is something they do. So, you know, that's something that's very important not to ignore as well, as much as it's probably very difficult to accept.
Just another comment here. I noticed that a lot of folks have expressed interest in this workshop to address cyberbullying with adults that might go on in community groups. And, you know, are there ways to really mitigate some of the frustrations that people have when it comes to these targeted attacks by just, you know, maybe speaking with the other side and, you know, having maybe a conversation that can be mediated with, you know, perhaps NAMI or other organizations that can really kind of help that person. Maybe I have the talking stick, now you talk, and to really, you know, get down to what is the real underlying problem there.
I think that would be a beautiful thing if it was possible. Adults get harder because so many times they're just sure that they're right and they don't feel like they're the problem. So what's the point of discussing it, because I'm sure I'm right and the other person's wrong. So I don't know how often they'd be open to some sort of a mediation. And yeah, they don't have perhaps the support system pushing them in a positive direction that perhaps a youth would have from their parents. But I guess maybe if, you know, you are not perhaps the victim of the adult's cyberbullying or what have you, but you see that your friend or your loved one is engaged in it, either as a perpetrator or a victim, you know, being able to, from the outside, saying, hey, you know, that's really not how you should be interacting with people. You could be hurting someone, or if you're getting hurt, and then having that kind of support from someone not engaged in the actual battle, so to speak. Yeah, I think that would probably be the best way to go, because other than that, the internet's just too scary to probably get two people to agree on anything.
Oh, and Ernestine, and to the people that had the question, one of the things that works quickly, and I just know this from teaching middle schoolers and such, is just calling them out on it. Just let them know, say, hey, that's cyberbullying. If you can't type something nice, don't type anything at all. And I saw someone earlier in the chat had had a cute little remark that's, what's your position on cyberbullying? That might get the point across, but then it might not. But if you just call them out on it, you know, that, and this is something that's been going on in Harper Woods for this last year. There's been a lot of cyberbullying and, you know, people posting nasty comments and things in the different Facebook groups and such. And so if you see that taking place, you know, just alert the person. Maybe you could send them a private chat or whatever. Just say, look, that's not cool. That's not okay. We don't do that. So at this point, like I said, the middle schoolers know that's not cool. But we need to educate the adults and let them know that it's not okay to cyberbully.
I have a question to Steve again. You have shown a graph about the girls and their effect on the with the cyberbullying, and I think I may have walked away from it. I don't remember you showing that. Did you show one for the boys too, and comparing them with the age?
They just had the, no, that's a good question. They just had it broken down by the young ladies for this one because their self-harm rates were more coincided more directly with the increase in social media. Because the girls are twice as likely to be cyberbullied than boys. So that the trajectory was more on the same path.
Quick question for our Director of Public Safety. You know, my parents sometimes are targets of, you know, certain things, like some of those things that Keith mentioned. The Netflix thing came to my mom, and she uses my account sometimes, but you know, this is not something that, why would you be getting a text message? And she's just panicking, trying to, you know, do these things. And so, you know, what would the timeline and the turnaround rate look like if, you know, she were to report, you know, oh, well, I sent $600 to Netflix because they said the account was, you know, something, that's what she was trying to say the other day. And, you know, so what would that look like as far as an investigation once somebody has sent over, you know, a certain amount of money for, you know, something that was fraud?
Well, we don't have anybody that's trained in cybercrime, so more than likely we would contact, you know, FBI and see what they could refer us to. I just know in years past, a lot of those, it's hard to track that down unless we have some valid information to go on. That's why I think Steve and Keith both said taking pictures of stuff, saving all the evidence you can, any kind of documentation that provides any kind of identification for that person that we can go on. You know, a lot of dealing with threats that I dealt with last year, you know, a lot of these, they're using fake names and whatever, so there's no way of tracking it down for that type of stuff. But like I said, this is so new that as far as the cyber crimes go and investigations for smaller department like us, we'd refer it out to someone with expertise. I think one of the slides was the FBI's website for IC3, I think it's called. It's the Internet Crime Complaint Center. It should be the second slide.
Yes, and you dropped a link for that in the chat as well. And we do have some questions here, and I see Reggie and Mary Beth came on. If you guys do have questions, feel free to, you know, chime in. But depending on the method of payment from the financial institutions using a debit card or credit card, they have 90 days to dispute the charge and get their money back. That was coming from Amina. Oh, it looks like Reggie's trying to talk. You're on mute.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? All right. I also am a teacher, and I taught a couple years ago digital citizenship. And one of the things that, you know, as a digital citizenship teacher should teach is teaching them how to become good citizens on the computer. And we talked about cyberbullying and how severe it is, but it seems to me that they're not they don't really understand how severe it is. And I'm talking about 3rd, 4th, 5th, maybe middle school age students. And it seems like we're trying to tell them how severe it is and how, how hurtful it can be for them to cyberbully. But yet it seems like we are kind of enticing them to do it, and they don't see how severe it is. So my question is, what can we do to really make them understand how severe this cyberbullying is, because they're just not getting it.
I think it would be that it boils down to mental health awareness and really teaching at that level or that age, what depression really is. And, you don't have to, get too into the darkness of it, but that these actions lead to more than just someone being sad, that, this depression and anxiety are very real illnesses that can have long lasting effects. And it's not just fun and games. Like, these can really hurt people in the long term, and kind of putting it in that perspective. Because I know growing up, I didn't understand what mental health was all about and how real it was. And, I used to, think like a lot of people that, depression is something you can work out of yourself and all these other misconceptions. But, tying it into that area would be my thoughts, because they're just so intertwined that maybe that part will help it click.
Oh, another question. Do you have maybe age appropriate videos that we can share with the students to show them how severe the cyberbullying is? Age appropriate videos, or?
I do not.
We don't?
I don't.
You think there's a possibility that someone could create some of those things so they can understand how, they can relate to it, and at the same time, it's not really degrading them, but just letting them know how severe it is, because it's real bad now. It's just like
It is.
It's using it as a tool.
Yeah, I could probably find some for you. That video that I showed is the one that I use with my 6th graders.
And how did they respond to it?
Pardon?
How did they respond to that after they saw the video? I know it was a.
They were like, "Oh, I didn't know that I was bullying." When, like, outing is a big one, and they didn't realize that when they were telling somebody else's information that they were outing. And then that's I probably put, at least a 75% stop to the outing going on. Okay. Anytime you tell someone else's business, or, bring it out anywhere and social media anyway, that's outing. And that's, I make sure that they know that that's very serious. The age group I'm having the hard time with now, because the older kids have got it, is the age group that's most difficult right now is 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Because just discovering how to cyberbully each other. And so that's a very young age group, and they're starting to get it, most of them. I don't know. I have one class that gets it and they're being very respectful, but I have another class that they're in school live, but they do a lot of online stuff, and that particular group's having a real hard time.
Yeah. So if we can get them young, then we wouldn't have to have this problem. I can see is there a problem with cyberbullying with adults? We get them young, this wouldn't be a problem later on in life.
Well, what I usually tell them is that this is a permanent record. So whatever you say, whatever you do, whatever you type in the chat, whatever you do, it's a permanent record. So when we show this, I just say, when I show this to your parents, or when your parents see this, what are they going to think about it? And that usually stops it right away.
Yeah, I tell my students the same thing: is whatever you put on the video, it cannot be erased. So make sure you present yourself the way you want to present yourselves on video, because it cannot be erased.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And that's a good conclusion. I think it's 9 o'clock, so it's probably time to wrap this up. but keeping the evidence, that's the best thing you can do.
True, true. As we are going to wrap things up, I do see that there are a few more questions in the chat, and I know that Stephanie sent this one a minute ago and it didn't get answered. How should you handle private message harassment that is unsolicited and displays personal information? I'll probably, and then we can definitely, wrap things up.
Through what type of platform or what type of personal information, I guess?
If Stephanie wants to answer, or I'm just going to assume maybe it's social media or perhaps Facebook.
I think just contacting or telling the person straight up, that's not acceptable. You cannot display my information. And just report them.
Oh, it's saying tax information and pictures of houses and information of that nature.
Maybe
Depending on what it is.
directly.
Some of it's public record, property taxes is public record.
May I say something really fast? If it's okay?
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to touch a couple things on the scams. We've had a few neighbors actually be affected by this, where you get a phone call and it tells you, oh, we understand and see that you're having network problems. And what happens is these people will sit there and tell you to type in a website. And as soon as you go to it, you're locked out. You can't call Dell, you can't call Microsoft, nobody can get back into your system. And then they'll have you sit on the phone while you go to the store and get a money order for 500 or $1,000, and they send it to India where you can't get that money back. But they know as soon as they get that wired money, then they release the lock and you get your computer back. So that's a big concern. And the other thing is on the email scams. Today alone, I got one from PayPal saying that, I had bought 60s of something and it was like $1,200. A good clue on your emails is to look at the return email address. A lot of times, if it's not directly to the company, like at paypal.com, but it's got all these, numbers or initials before it, that's a good indicator there that you've got a email scam. And that's it.
Okay, and some of these other questions, I'm just going to take one more and then we can close things out. There was a question about whether or not there are support groups for teens who have been victims of bullying.
I should probably start one up. You go ahead. Sorry, Steve.
NAMI does have some. It's called a family to family, where it there's people who it's like a support group with a little more education in it. But so if you go to NAMI Michigan, so NAMIMI.org, NAMI Michigan, you can look up where the family to family services are.
Okay, and I just wanted to address, we did have some comments in here saying that, yes, I think we do have issues with cyberbullying in Harper Woods. But I think that having things like this can definitely be a forum for people to be able to not only address their concerns, but to learn about actions that they can take against, letting this proliferate, or to be able to stop it and to somehow have mediation. And then there was also another comment that said there was a lot of really great information here. And thank you. I want to say thank you to the speakers and our panel. And then I'll turn it over back to Ivory, Cheryl, and Dave. And of course, Vince Smith.
I'll jump in real quick. I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. Cyberbullying and scams is something that is getting growing larger and larger, and even worse with COVID being around. And workshops like these are really necessary so that we can bring it to each other and other people's attention as to what they can do, either to protect themselves or, from the scams or the psychological abuse themselves. But a special thanks to Steve and Keith for coming on today and being with us during our workshop. And again, thank you everybody who came.
This is a great group. Thank you for having me.
Another little piece of advice I'm sure was covered too was the fact that when you get those, like they were mentioning, those emails that don't seem right, like from Amazon and PayPal and those, even my Chase Bank, if they question about it, just call that organization directly and then work it through with them. A lot of times they say, no, we didn't send it out. We have nothing to do with that. So that's just another way of making sure it's legit instead of just clicking on a button. Because the last time I clicked on a button, they didn't take any money from it, but they sent these emails out to bunch of my database saying I need money. And my friends would call me from around the country and say, Ivory, did you send it? I said, no, I didn't do that. So I was really embarrassed how I got suckered in.
I just want to thank everybody for participating in the workshop. Thank you for coming, and please spread the message out there. Keep people informed, let them know, this is not acceptable or what, keep the department informed if somebody tries to pull something on you. And we're definitely gonna be there for you if something does happen, so let us know. So thanks a lot, and thanks to all of our speakers and presenters and the committee for all your hard work, and we really appreciate you. Have a great evening.
Goodbye, everyone.
One last thing I wanted to say, tomorrow there will be a workshop. The Education Committee of the Neighborhood Economic Development Coalition is putting on a March Money Madness workshop that talks about financial literacy, investing, knowing what to do with your finances, and you protect your money. So that's going to be hosted by the NEDC's Education Committee tomorrow at 7. And there's information out there. I've shared the flyers everywhere. So be on the lookout for that. Same time tomorrow, which is 7 o'clock.
7 p.m.
Mhm.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, we can just wrap things up here.
Bye.